Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Montgomery County this afternoon. Today, we have two guests, very important guests from the Board of Education. We have Brenda Wolff. She is the president of the Board of Education and serving as the executive board of the Maryland Association of Boards of Education, and is also the vice chair of the MAB's Legislative Committee. And we have Karla Silvestre with us as well. She's the vice president of the Board of Education and serves as chair of the Board of Education Strategic Planning Committee. And Karla has 25 years of experience in youth development, education, workforce development, and community engagement. So this promises to be a very engaging conversation about education in the county. So I would like to welcome both of you. The floor is yours. For your own introductions and presentations, and then we'll follow with some questions and discussions.
Okay, thank you, Mauricio. I think we agreed that I would go first. I wanted to start out by telling people a little bit about myself. I grew up in DC. I graduated from Elizabeth Seton High School, which is a Catholic school. I spent the majority of my time in school, though, in DC public schools, but I was a product of DSEG, and in the 10th grade, they were going back and forth, so my mother moved me to Catholic school. Well, when I decided I wanted to go to college, I wanted to go to Smith College, a predominantly white institution in Massachusetts. At that time, the nuns at Elizabeth Seton felt that I should go to a Black college. And you know what that told me? That they didn't see the possibilities in that little Black girl from DC, because they were not going to do a recommendation. Fast forward, I went on to Smith without the recommendation, graduated with a degree in math, went to law school, graduated and began working for the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. I worked there for almost 5 years. But my real passion was in education. And so I had an opportunity to go to work for the US Department of Education. And at that time, what I did was appeals of civil rights complaints. I was the chief attorney in the Boston Regional Office, the deputy and the acting director in the Office for Civil Rights in Philadelphia. And I came to Washington as head of the Policy Institute, the acting director of the At-Risk Institute, and later I retired from the National Assessment of Educational Progress. So I have 34 years in education and or civil rights. But what I really was interested in, I observed from doing a mentoring program over here at the Blake High School, and this was around 2014, I noticed the disparities in discipline. Well, this is something that I thought we had corrected back in 1997 when I was the director of the Office for Civil Rights in Philadelphia, the acting director. But as I noticed the difference in treatment of the Black students and brown students from the white students, I felt that I should be able to do something about that. And there were two incidents that were particularly troublesome to me. One had to do with a child being disciplined for putting her purse in the chair. And apparently the teacher wanted it on the floor. And if anybody knows, they know in the Black community, there is a superstition about putting your purse on the floor. And the other had to do with what I would call body shaming because of an outfit a young lady had on, whereas another student of a different race had on the same outfit and was not disciplined. So when I saw all of these things going on, and at the same time, as I said, I was running a mentoring program dealing with a lot of issues of feeling inferior about things that were going on. And so I decided that I would run for the Board of Education. I later expanded that program while I was running to Springbrook High School, and we had great success. So I wanted to share with you a little bit about what my priorities are currently for the Board of Education. And they really haven't changed. People said, well, weren't those your priorities before? Yes, but we got interrupted by COVID. So a lot of them have not been met. And I want to stay on until I see some actual movement in a positive direction. I think we were making those moves, but again, like I said, we got interrupted. So the first thing, I have a real concern about equitable distribution of programming in the county, because I live over here in East County, and the same opportunities are not available to students over here that are available in other parts of the county. People would say, well, isn't that true other places too? Yes, it is. It's certain spots in Gaithersburg and other areas. It's true. I also would like to get back to working on seeing how we can expand pre-K. We know that early exposure to education of 4-year-olds improves their outcomes. I want to get back to measuring the effectiveness of programs. That got interrupted. Clearly, we've got to do that, because I do believe we probably have some programs that need to be shut down because they're not showing anything. And one thing that we know is being changed is reading. We're going to structured reading based on a research model, and I think that that's very important. I also want to expand access to evidence-based social and emotional supports. And last but not least, I want to work on improving the opportunity gap, which is something that I said we've been working on for years, but we need to make some actual advancement in it. So I'll stop right there and let my counterpart, Ms. Silvestre, talk.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Muy buenas tardes. Thank you to the Chamber, Montgomery County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, for hosting this information session. I think it's a great idea for the residents of Montgomery County to get to know the people that are in office and running for office as well. So a little bit about myself. I am originally from Guatemala. I came when I was 8 years old. As you know, there was Cold War conflict happening all over Latin America, and my family had to leave. I didn't speak English. We came with tourist visas, and those expired soon after, so we became undocumented, and we were just starting from scratch. I was fortunate that my family got political asylum when I was, I think, 16, 17 years old, and so I was able to apply for financial aid. I was able to go to college at the in-state tuition rate. And I wonder sometimes what would have happened to me if I didn't have access to be able to pay for college. I mean, the bachelor's degree is the fastest way to the middle class. And so I have a near and dear place in my heart for students that are in that situation. And so I do that work at Montgomery College. I am director of community engagement at Montgomery College, and my job is to help people connect with education, either more workforce training because they need more skills to get a better job, or start the degree side, or continue with the degree side. And so my work takes me out into the community, and I help people connect with the college. I am the mother of two girls. One is a graduate of MCPS. She is at the University of Maryland. And my youngest daughter is a 9th grader in the school system. So I also bring the parent perspective, the user perspective. When a snow day is called last minute, I also used to have to scramble for childcare, just like everybody else. I, like many families, dealt with online learning for 18 months. That was very challenging, and as a board member and as a parent. And so I bring that perspective as well. My priorities, like Ms. Wolff, and actually our leaders, I think that our community has banded together around preschool. We understand the importance of preschool and early care and education. Mauricio, the achievement gap begins in kindergarten. The majority of low-income students in Montgomery County are not ready for kindergarten when they do that assessment. Why? There's lots of reasons, but one of them is middle-income families can afford high-quality childcare. They put them in nursery schools and childcare where the teachers are highly trained. There's a curriculum. You can't compare that to a child that a neighbor is watching them during the day because their parents have to go to work. And so there's an achievement gap that's happening early on. And as I said, it impacts where our students start. And so that is a community issue. Like I said, the blueprint for Maryland's future, which is Maryland's education reform effort, supports it. So now we just have to make it happen. It's one of the things that I'm so excited about if I am reelected to be on the board, is to really see that become a reality in Montgomery County in Maryland. It's not going to be easy. We need more classrooms. Our schools are already overcrowded. So where are we going to put these additional pre-K rooms? We need more workers. The childcare industry was really hurt by the pandemic. Many closed. So we need more workers. We need, and finally, we need the funding. It's going to be costly. And so we really have to rally together to make sure that our local, state, and federal leaders, if we can get it, rally around early care and education and preschool. The other thing that I find is a big priority of mine is high expectations and rigor. We too often in our American school system, children in poverty were not challenged. They were allowed to stay in on-level classes or below-level classes. And so this board is very committed to making sure that our Black and brown children and our children in poverty are, if they pass the test that shows that they are high math students, they should most definitely be in the most advanced classes. And sometimes we don't do that. We don't place them in the most advanced classes. If you are not being challenged all along the way, you're not going to be ready for college and career when you graduate. And so it's really important that we have high expectations for all of our students. Every child in the school system can achieve, at their highest levels. We have to change our mindset and make sure that we're checking our biases and that we're treating students the same in terms of high expectations for all. This board is also very supportive of career and technical education. There are great jobs out there that don't require a college degree, but they do require some post-secondary training. So if you want to become an auto mechanic, if you want to learn how to fix air conditionings, how to install solar panels, I am a big proponent of making sure that we expose our children, our students, to those types of career options as well. So they have choices. They can become an auto mechanic and choose to do that after high school, or they can go to college. They should be prepared to do both. And so our school system has really expanded the career and technical education options, and I want them to continue. And I want every student to have a post-high school graduation plan. What are you going to do after you graduate? Are you going to go to college? Okay, here are the steps to do that. No, I want to learn how to fix cars. Okay, that's great. Here are the steps that you need in order to do that. I want to start working because I have to support my family. All right, do you have a resume? Do you know what to expect in an interview? Et cetera, et cetera. So every student, like the graduation is a great finish and end line and goal, but there's, of course, we know there's a lot more that we need to help our students so that they're very prepared for the workforce and to continue their education. And finally, I'll end with recruiting and retaining our teachers and education staff and leaders. We are a people institution. 92% of our budget is staff. $3.9 billion. If we don't have people, we can't run the school system. And even before the pandemic, there was a national shortage of teachers. Now there's national shortage of social workers and psychologists. And every school system in the DMV is looking for the same talent, the same types of teachers, the same types of school personnel, bus drivers. We saw shortages this year. And so we have to get ahead of this. We have to be more proactive. We have to be more creative. We have to incentivize this more. And so I've always been a proponent for a grow your own program, where we are encouraging our own MCPS graduates to go into the fields that we need them here in our school system: teachers, psychologists, counselors, social workers, STEM teachers, of course. And so for the first time ever, this program has launched in MCPS. And I think it's critical that we help these students go get their education and come back and teach and work, not just teachers, and work in our school system. So I will stop there, and thanks so much to get the opportunity.
Okay. Well, that was a great introduction. So I would like to start with something that you both mentioned about preschool, early childhood education, and childcare. The budget that was approved for this year, fiscal year 23, includes, I'm sorry, I'm getting some. Okay. So that budget does allocate some funds for early childhood initiatives being expanded. Can you tell us a little bit about what's coming the next fiscal year in terms of early childhood and supporting Black and brown children, as you mentioned, Karla, those students that are being left out? They have 2 years, 3 years old, and they're being watched by the neighbor, they're being watched by grandma, and they're not learning much.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, and Brenda can correct me, what's in the budget is really an expansion of a program here and a program there. It's not a massive expansion of pre-K. So I don't remember the schools, but we are opening another classroom in a certain part of the county, and another classroom, 1 or 2 additional.
Karla, that's right. And we're also looking to obtain some blueprint funds. You know, the premise, I think, of the blueprint is to expand public-private partnerships. And so MCPS will have to start thinking of how they're going to manage that, because they're going to have certain requirements that they're going to have to be trained for in order to be able to participate in that program. So we're looking to increase the number of kindergarten seats that way. She's right, we don't have enough money in the budget or even space in our schools to actually expand, but maybe a few seats each year. But right now we're looking to the blueprint to be able to help us do that. We're also looking at, I think, adding a Judy Center in a Title I school. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think they're looking at full day pre-K. I'm trying to recall my notes, but I think they're looking at some full day pre-K options for two-way dual immersion language programs.
Yeah, and as Ms. Wolff mentioned, the public school system can't do this alone.
Yeah.
The county government can't do this alone. So we do have to work with private childcare providers. Can they take 5 more kids in their program, 10 more kids in their program? Do they have space to open up a new classroom? And so that is a different way of thinking. And the county has finally created a coordinating entity that will oversee all the players that touch childcare, because it is a big bureaucracy, and we need to be very efficient if this is going to launch in the next few years because of the reform effort, which is the blueprint.
You know, we do have 2 childcare centers, one at McDonald Knowles and one at Watkins Mill High School. So the funding will continue for those.
The percentage of the budget that's allocated towards staff is about 91%. It's over 90% currently. How does that play into the factor of expanding programs and initiatives like early childhood, new schools, and others? Would like to understand better how is that the budget that we have, which is about $3 billion, over 90% of that budget, it goes towards staff, and we leave probably not enough to expand programs that are needed in the community.
Yeah, I think the latest statistic is it's 92% of the budget, and the overall, the last approved budget was $3.9 billion. And to your question, Mauricio, the staffing is mostly staffing, as we stated. It's based on the number of students. So there's a formula. If you have 500 students in a school, you're going to get X number of teachers, X number of administrators, X number of support personnel. So it's largely formula driven. The exception is our low income schools, like our Title I schools. They receive additional different types of staff. They have smaller class size. And so just by that alone, that gives them more teachers because they have to be able to serve smaller numbers of students. Brenda, if you want to jump in on.
I'm not quite sure that I understand what you're asking, Mauricio. Are you really trying to determine how we're going to pay for more teachers, since we're already allotting 91% of our funds to the teaching staff? Well, to the staff, period. Is that the real question?
Well, the question is more about understanding better that allocation of the budget, because there are needs for schools, for early childhood centers and everything. So what do we need in order of either relocating or reassessing the budget that we currently have, that the public schools have right now, or increasing, or both, in order to better serve those needs that are not being properly addressed right now?
Well, I'm not sure that increasing the budget right now is actually what we need. I think one thing we need to do is some program evaluation, because we have so many programs and we don't really know right now whether we need all of those programs, whether they're effective. There is a program evaluation component built into MCPS, but as you know, for the past 2 years, we've been dealing with COVID more so, and we've got to get back to trying to figure out, should we shut some of those down and put our money into something else that might be working better? But we first need to have that program evaluation. I also would say that we are benefiting right now from having funds from ESSER. We have ESSER 1 funds that are available to September of 2022, ESSER 2 funds for 2023, and ESSER 3 for 2024. So that gives us money to put into programs for certain things, not everything, but we are getting the benefit of some of that. But I think right now what we really need to do is have a wholesale evaluation of what we currently have, whether it's working and whether we need to continue it.
Yeah, I just would add that if you want to look at just the pre-K example, like, well, what's it going to take to get us to expand our pre-K program? Again, number of children will determine how many more pre-K teachers we need, and that comes with the cost. And construction, some construction will have to happen in order to find more space for students. So again, largely the funding is based on number of students and the personnel that are needed in order to serve those students.
And right now, we should mention that that we do have a hold harmless component with the county, meaning that even though our numbers have decreased, we're still being funded for MOE at the level of, I think it's 2019, because they're holding harmless. So that gives us, it doesn't give you a lot of extra money, but there is some benefit to that because the numbers have decreased. an MOE as it's currently written should have decreased, but it's not being decreased because of the hold harmless provision.
When do you anticipate to have numbers for the upcoming year? By the end of the month?
September 30th is when we will have our numbers for the upcoming year that we will file with the state. But the problem with upcoming numbers is you file them on September 30th. And I know during this past school year, the school year that we're in, I believe we've taken in 3,000 students almost since September 30th. And so you have to use the funds you have to address that additional number of students because you filed your numbers on September 30th.
Yeah, as Brenda said, we try to get people to enroll their children as soon as they move to Montgomery County, or if they have preschoolers or kindergartners. But they don't. Sometimes they come late. So September 30th is that deadline. Okay, we have to do the count at some point. So the September 30th date is what the state requires. But as Brenda said, we had 3,000 newcomers from Central America and all over the world, but mostly from Central America throughout the course of the last academic year. We don't get any extra funding for that because the September 30th deadline already passed. So we have to use whatever money we have to serve the students that are in our schools throughout the entire year.
Yeah, that was my question for you. It's about the overwhelming with all those students in ESOL program. And it's, I guess you see that issue as a major issue in the administration, no? Because every day the kids are coming and many of them, they are not ready for the school. They don't know how to do many things. I guess we need to work more in that part for the students. And my other question, if I can do it, is about special education. And do you think the students, when they finish the school, are they ready for the transition on their life? Because after school there are not many programs for them. So they have to go in front of the society and the work world. And do you think it's some more people or more teachers for the special education or more preparation for the students?
Well, we do have a life skills program, and special needs students are able to stay in the system until age 21. But I think I could agree with you that probably more could be done in that area. Not being a special educator, I'm not sure what that is, and truly it depends upon the level of disability. But they do stay in the system if they have severe disabilities until age 21. But there is a life skills program that teaches them how to sort of live in the community within our school system.
Yeah, we can always use more support for special education. Our council member, Craig Rice, reminds us that the federal law, because special education is a federal law, has never been fully funded. And so local school districts have been complying with the law without the federal funding. So we use local funding to serve our students, but yes, if a student is eligible, I think you're talking about the students with severe disabilities. If they're eligible to stay until age 21, certainly. And, Montgomery College also works very closely with the school system to transition them to the services that are available at Montgomery College. In terms of the newcomers, Carmen, our philosophy in Montgomery County Public Schools, and it's the law, any young person is entitled to a free and public education. And so we encourage all the newcomers to come to MCPS to enroll. If they are very on the older side of the spectrum, 18 years old and close to 17 years old, 18 years old, not going to graduate, there's a program for them. If they are ninth graders, then they have 4 years, 5 years to do all of their graduation requirements, to learn English. And so this is something that I have been paying attention to, our ESOL program, particularly in the secondary. And we welcome the students and we want them to get their education because they're entitled to it.
Okay, thank you very much, both of you.
So what are some initiatives to better serve these immigrant students that are coming and that because of the nature of immigration cannot be accounted in the fiscal years or the budgets that we prepare on an annual basis? What could be a kind of an approach to better serve these students that are coming throughout the year to the public schools?
Yeah, the county council this past school year made a special appropriation to fund health and human services, to fund the school system, to fund legal assistance, so that they are being wrapped around services. They need legal assistance, legal representation. If they get their court date and they don't have representation, majority of students lose their case. So that's number one. Number two, of course, they need to be successful in the schools. Keep going to school, attend every day. That's how you're going to learn. And then, of course, and also connection to other social services. Some of them have a lot of trauma from the immigration experience, so they're connected to social workers and mental health providers. We're in a good place. We just need to implement it and make sure that we are getting the results that they are intended to have.
Some of these Title I schools that serve primarily Black and brown children, immigrant children, do not have the best resources or necessarily the best teachers. How can we ensure that these schools have better teachers, that we can improve the quality of education? As teachers gain experience, they also gain mobility, and they're able to relocate to other schools, and that's leaving some of these schools, Title I schools, with teachers that probably don't have the experience or the resources to deal with the population that they have. How can we address those problems and ensure that we kind of bridge the gap between those minority students and the rest?
That's one of the concerns that I know both Karla and myself have been raising for the almost entire 4 years that we've been on the board. How do we keep our good teachers in the Title I schools? Because some of the behaviors and the students are more difficult in Title I schools. And when the teachers have done their 2 years, I believe, they're able to go to another school. It might be 3 years. But we do have a teacher contract we have to deal with in that situation. But they have agreed to come to the table and start talking about what we can do to retain teachers and some of the best teachers in our Title I schools. I think also under the blueprint, they have included a provision for national board certification, which indicates a highly effective teacher. They're giving a $10,000 bonus for that, but they're also, in addition, saying, if you will work in a Title I school, you can get an extra $7,000. That would give a $17,000 boost to some of the highly qualified teachers to stay in a Title I school. Will that work? Well, I don't know just yet, but I think it's a start because it is a tougher job. And I do think in some ways it deserves a little bit more. Karla?
Yeah, just to add, our previous superintendent, Dr. Jack Smith, he began to address this before the blueprint came. When we got a new teacher to the school system that had experience, he would make sure that they went to Title I schools. So he could control that, and so he did that. But as Brenda said, the blueprint is going to incentivize teachers to stay in Title I schools with additional funding.
But I will say that while I do agree that we want to keep our experienced teachers, sometimes experience doesn't help because they have become set in their ways, if I can be honest about that. And sometimes having new, younger teachers and teachers that look like the students in the class might be more motivating to some of the students. So it's a mixed bag. I think you really have to take a look at the skills that they bring, what their experience is, what their training is, because a lot of people have no experience with what I might consider an urban school type of setting, because a lot of our schools are a little bit more urban than suburban, and they might be uncomfortable with that situation. And if they are uncomfortable, that's going to be demonstrated to the students in some way. The students will receive that message. So I'm not sure. It's a real balancing act, but there is an incentive under the blueprint to work in Title I schools.
Montgomery County used to have public schools that ranked among the top 100 in the country. Why do you think that's no longer the case? And how can we get back to having schools that are top in the nation?
Well, and I think that I don't know the answer to this question. I've been meaning to find out. But those rankings, there are so many rankings for schools. What do they mean? Most of the time, they mean that the students are going to highly selective schools where everyone is high income and has the resources to do test preparation, to do enrichment, to do summer camps that help them. So it's not a real test of the quality of the school. It's the test of, can your parents afford tutoring? Can your parents afford test prep? Can your parents afford enrichment? I think that we need to develop our own, what is of value? So we have our external measures, our students' graduation rates, are students taking advanced placement classes? Are they taking college level classes? Because those are external measures, right? If our students are passing those external, that's not the test that I'm giving, it's the test that an outside partner is giving. So that's another good measure. Diversity, we value diversity in this county. Okay, are those schools that you mentioned, are those diverse schools? I doubt it. So I think that we need to develop our own measures. Our school system measures our success by three things: grades, the grades that our students and the teachers give, district-wide assessments, and external measures. You can't take one test and say, okay, she's brilliant. That's going to determine the rest of her life. No, you have to look at multiple measures. Some students do terribly on standardized tests, so that you can't use one test to measure the success of a student. So I think that parents do need, I think we need to better explain that to families so that when they do move to our county, they're able to see the value of many different schools and not think, oh, only the school that ranked the highest on this one report is the one that I'm interested in for my child. So great question. And I think many parents struggle with that when they start school in MCPS is, where do I enroll my kid? Where am I going to buy a house? Where am I going to rent? And we do need to do a better job of communicating with the public the different measures that make a school great.
I don't think I can add anything to that, because I agree with Karla. I think that when you look at the US World Report ranking of schools, you're really not comparing, you're comparing apples and oranges. You're not always comparing apples and apples. And so if you ask us about our own schools, I think that you would get a better measure. But I also think that if you look at the schools that are highly ranked, they are not diverse schools. They are schools where the parents can provide extra support so their kids can achieve. And so for me, that's not comparing apples and oranges. And just because a school isn't ranked, like say in the top 50, doesn't mean that it isn't an excellent school. Because I recently attended a graduation ceremony for students we have that were getting their associate's degree and high school diploma at the same time. People don't hear about those stories. And what was interesting is you don't hear about the schools that they came from. You would probably say, oh, those are not the schools I want to send my kids to. But yet look at the number of kids that came out with dual enrollment degrees. And the diversity of the group was extremely impressive to me. So I'm not sure that we have an exact answer to your question, but I do think we need to better explain what we're seeing and what's going on in our schools.
And a question that's very specific to the Hispanic population, which is the largest minority in the public schools. Are there any programs that are geared towards minority students in general, but particularly towards Hispanics? There's been a lack of communication in Spanish. There's lack of participation from parents in public schools and their children's education. Hispanics also have the lowest scores and the lowest, as I said, parental participation. It's also the fastest growing population in the county. Is this something that is being considered to be addressed by the board and therefore by the public schools in the county?
So the question is there a specific program or initiative for Hispanic students?
To help Hispanic students in the county, correct?
I don't think that there is a Hispanic only initiative. What comes to mind is what makes a great education is a high quality curriculum and a highly effective teacher that reflects the student population. So those are just two examples of things that we have been working on to have more Latino teachers, more Asian teachers, more Black teachers in front of our students so that they can see themselves, they can see themselves reflected in their school leaders, and that the teacher understands the student population. We don't have enough Hispanic teachers, and so that is something that we continue to work on. And as I mentioned, this Grow Your Own initiative should help with that. And the other is the curriculum. So we are working with our curriculum company to make sure that what they're seeing themselves in the curriculum as well. Stories that reflect our community, names that it doesn't have to be, Bob and Betsy, it can be Rosita y Juanito. And so those are some very specific things that help all minority groups, but I think are going to make a difference. Again, teaching and learning are the core. We can talk about a little program here, a little program there, but we need to focus on teaching and learning because that's going to have the biggest impact on our students. Our strategic plan talks about academic excellence. It talks about parent engagement, like you mentioned. It talks about mental health and social emotional learning after there is a mental health crisis among our young people, and operations, making sure that we have efficient operations and we have the personnel to run our school system. I don't know, Brenda, if you have anything to add to that.
No, except for that we have professional learning communities for content teachers that are teaching students with limited and interrupted education. They're called SLIFE, I think it's called SLIFE teachers. And we have those coaches embedded in the elementary schools to build capacity for our teachers. But other than what Karla said, I can't add anything else to that.
Yeah, and we recognize that communications need to be improved system-wide for all families, but in particular for Hispanic-speaking communities. And so we just hired a cabinet-level communications and strategy officer that we have very high hopes that this person will help us change the trajectory, because you're correct, we don't do a great job communicating with our parents, and especially our parents that don't speak English. The parent engagement, the translation is a huge challenge. And we have been contracting with a nonprofit that is helping us build parent leaders, because we also want to increase our own parents' sense of ability to advocate and to speak up for their own children, but also the issues that they see in our school communities. That's longer term, harder work, but it goes hand in hand with improving our communications for Spanish-speaking families.
I think that what you just mentioned about parent leaders is very, very important, because for many of the Hispanic students, the Latino students in the county, parents didn't necessarily have the opportunity to go to college or to finish high school either. And they may feel not ready to go and speak on behalf of their children or to participate in these forums, but their participation is actually very important. They just feel that they don't belong in the space, or they don't have the resources to participate. So I think that's great to hear that there are initiatives to work with parents to bring parent leaders and to have the parents build that confidence to come to school and speak on behalf of their own children. And tied to that, would like to know if you think that having bilingual resources in the schools would be important and something worth considering, so that the Spanish-speaking parents can have access to people and have access to resources in front offices and the school offices to talk about concerns with the children and everything. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think that many of our schools have moved towards having front office staff that are bilingual, because we have so many students that so many parents that come in that don't speak English, so that they can communicate with them. So I think that's very important. And it's not just really the Hispanic community. We have an African community that also has some of the same issues in speaking French. They come in and they're unable to communicate their concerns about their kids. So I think that we do need to do a better job with providing staff and resources for parents to understand what it is they need to do for their children to help them succeed. I think some of our parent academies are currently being done in Spanish also. But I wanted to get back to something you said earlier about communication, because communication is also a problem in the Black community. I know that people don't think so because they're an English-speaking community, but it is a problem getting the parents to get involved a lot of times in their children's education. You do have a certain number of them that are well educated, but you have a certain number that are at work and just can't get to whatever's going on, and also don't understand the importance of being seen at the school in terms of their children's education. So, I'm hoping that our new communications person will be thinking about all of these issues.
Could I add something to that, please, Mauricio? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and what you said, Brenda, is totally correct. One of the things that we have received calls about is the frustration with trying. So you may have people who speak French or Spanish as well in the front office, but being able to, if I wanted to talk about my child and a concern that I have, and sometimes people feel it's hard to get to the right person, because a lot of times the front office in a school may be a little dismissive about a concern, or they don't think they are, but they're trying to protect the time of the people who are at the front office, right? So I don't know if there's a process or a way that people, especially people of color, and it's not just, like you said, it's not just Hispanics, but also everybody that isn't comfortable with reaching out to people in the school that are not part of that inner school community, teacher, parent. Some people are, work hard, like single moms or things like that. And is there something that you can do coming forward from the board part to make sure that there are things implemented? Maybe it's a training or process or policy that there's a number that they can call if they are very concerned about their child, or there is a place if they walk into the school that they should be addressing it to, as opposed to somebody just saying, well, you'll have to wait in queue and we'll call you when, So is there some way that we can breach that gap of communication?
Well, let us work with our new communications person and our community outreach person to think about that a little more, because you're absolutely right. I remember going with my grandson's mother to his elementary school to enroll him. And what you find is, quite frankly, particularly in elementary schools, that the front office staff is overwhelmed. There are people coming in all the time. The child is late, so they've got to call somebody, or the parent came in to pick up a child. It's a lot of activity. So if you're trying to address a concern, it probably is very difficult to get to talk to a person. So let us bring that up to our new community outreach person and to our new communications person and see what can be done about that, because I think you're absolutely right. I think it's less of a problem in high school, but I know it's a concern in elementary school because of the length of time we waited to enroll our kid just to get to speak to someone about some question that we had.
Right.
Karla.
And then just one last thing is that I have, and then Mauricio, I know you have other questions from other people that have submitted. What are, and you may have addressed this, so because I came in a little bit late here, but what are you doing in terms of addressing, so people say, well, okay, you were talking earlier, Karla, about any school that is well equipped in the Montgomery County public school system. You have really good schools, not necessarily known, or not necessarily in a good, wealthy neighborhood. But people sometimes are afraid because of the safety of their child, right? So, and they hear that in this school that I'm going to put my child at, there's been some acts of violence, and I don't want to have to take my child there. Is there a way that they can, and I know the answer is probably no, but I don't know, is there a way that they can switch schools, or say, I don't want to put my child there because there've been 3 violent acts last year and I don't want to have to go there. So what can I do about making sure that my child is safe? And if I don't have a choice, do I have to move to a different neighborhood, or what do I do? That's a tough question, I know, but how do we address violence in the schools, basically, right? Yeah.
We get the serious incidents report for all the schools in Montgomery County Public Schools. There are serious incidents everywhere. So, so to answer your question, I mean, safety is a #1 priority, and yes, there are some things happening in the community in Montgomery County and the country right now that are rolling back into the schools, and so we are taking this very seriously. But as you know, you have to live in the zone, in the boundary in which your child will go to. So your house, your apartment, with the location of it, this determines what school you're assigned to. You can try applying to magnet programs if you move here at the right time of the year. You can try a change of school assignment, but you have to prove a unique hardship. How are you different than the average parent that is also concerned about whatever your issue is concerned about? So, don't just go with the latest Fox News article about something that happened in your community. Really get to know the school. and understand, you know, are those concerns valid or not?
Okay, and then just very, very, very quickly, last question is, what are the qualifications that I should look at for in somebody who's going to be serving on the board? What am I expecting from them to do for me as a parent in Montgomery County?
The qualifications, that's a very interesting question, because there's a difference between the qualifications of a person and what you need to get work done on the board. Because working on the board is actually a collaboration and a negotiation. And I also think that people have to understand what the board does, because people really believe that they can come in and just tell MCPS what to do. That is not true, because the board decides the why and the what of what is being done, and the system decides the how and the when. And so unless you understand that, you have a very difficult time working through with your colleagues on the board. You also have to understand that it takes 5 people to agree with you. It has to be 5 people agreeing to whatever is being requested to be done. So there are 8 people on the board, including a student member. So to me, I would say the most important thing you're looking for is somebody who shows leadership, somebody who's collaborative, and somebody who's able to negotiate, and somebody who is not single-minded. They're not interested in one issue, because we have 1,000 issues. So if you're single-minded and you're only trying to get one thing done, the board is not the place for you, because we have to address issues for all students.
Right. So if somebody says to us, what should we look for towards the board? Because I know one of the key things we wanted to have you do is explain to people what the role of the board is and how each person on the board is important, and when I said qualifications, I meant the skill set or those qualities about the person, right? So I didn't mean certificates, right? So that is what I meant. And so I wanted to hear from you, if I'm looking at a person that I think is going to be representing me as a parent on the school board, what kind of person do I want to make sure this person is? And it sounds like it's somebody who knows how to negotiate, who has maybe a good knowledge about what the school system is about, because that helps, right? And so if there's anything else, that's kind of what I wanted to get out.
Well, I hope that answered your question. I know for me, working on the board is a priority. I failed to mention, and I know Karla mentioned her 2 kids went to MCPS, but I actually have a daughter that teaches elementary school in MCPS, and a grandson who attends. So I'm very vested in the outcome of our students and what they're being trained to do in order to be productive citizens in this country and in this state. But again, like I said, I believe the most important skills are collaboration, negotiation, leadership, but having single issues is not it.
I think that's true for all of our leaders, right? And I think Karla and Brenda, you both have shown those kinds of leadership qualifications and skills. It's not qualifications, it's the qualities, but definitely. Karla, you wanted to say something.
No, I want to echo what Brenda said, but knowing the school system is important. Collaboration, as has been stated, you can't come in and say, I'm going to do this by myself. No, you have to have the support of your fellow board members. We are both committed to equity. We always make sure that the resources are going to our county, not equally, but equitably, which is different. And we are also, we're not afraid to push back. We are experienced women with, like I said, with the vested interest in our school system. And so We push back when it's necessary. We're also very committed on return on investment. Are things working? We know that we are all taxpayers here, and the local governments support our school system, and so we want to see results.
Okay.
And this has been a fantastic hour. Many more questions, many more things to talk about, but it's about time for us to wrap it up. So I would like to thank Brenda and Karla for joining us today. Hopefully, we'll have an opportunity to have you back and be able to talk about many more things about the Board of Education and public education in Montgomery County. So I would like to thank you both for your time, your interest, and your participation in our conversation today. And we wish you both the best in the upcoming elections on July 19th. And if there's anything that the chamber can do to make sure that people go out and vote and understand the role of the Board of Education and the importance of voting for the districts that are up for election this year, we are most happy to help, and we're most happy to support those efforts.
Thank you, Mauricio. And to that point, remember, you can vote for all the school board members. Doesn't matter the district. That's something unique about the school board. So don't think that you have to live in Brenda's district to vote for her or any other district. You all vote for everyone that's on the slate for every single district and the at-large. And yes, we will need the chamber's help to get out the vote, because it's in the middle of summer. People are on vacation. They're not paying attention. And so anything you can do to get out the vote, it's greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. And then it's also a nonpartisan election, right?
Yes. Yes, we are not any party affiliation. We are here to serve the taxpayers and the students.
And it's important, even if you're not a parent or your kids have grown up, because who we educate today is going to have a big impact on our community. So I really appreciate the work that both of you have done for our school system, for our community, and for our children. Thank you.